Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Weekend Waypoints, a production of SEC Extra, D1Baseball.com. Joe Healy here to wrap up Saturday's action around the SEC, also to get you ready for Sunday's games around the league. We've got a lot of stuff to get to, but before we jump into anything else, I have to let you know that this episode of Weekend Waypoints, all of our Sunday episodes of Weekend Waypoints are brought to you by Active Wealth Management. Ford Stokes and Sam Davis are my guys over there. They've supported Weekend Waypoints, so we ask that you support the people who support us if that's something you're in the market for. Again, a reminder that in the SEC footprint, you can catch Ford Stokes doing his own media stuff. He's not just a financial advisor. He also understands the media game a little bit. He's got a show, Retirement Results, that's on in Huntsville, Alabama, 10:30 a.m. Sundays, and in Columbus, Georgia, on Fox WXTX at 8:30 a.m. You can catch it there. You can also catch his show on iHeartRadio in Huntsville and in Atlanta on 9:20 a.m. The Answer. So lots of ways to, maybe even get a feel for Ford and his style before you go into maybe having him take a look at your finances. So as always, our call to action, visit activewealth.com and click schedule a consultation to get your free 401k review, which is a $1,500 value at no cost to you. All right, let's jump into the baseball. Game of the day for me was Ole Miss 5, Auburn 4, a series that, between two teams near the bottom of the standings, but an important series nonetheless when you consider what those two teams are striving for. Ole Miss scratching and clawing and trying to do anything to get back into the at-large mix. Auburn, of course, just trying to make Hoover. Ole Miss comes away with a dramatic win. I'll pull up the box score here in just a second. And I hate while I'm doing that, I hate to just call it necessarily, but Auburn getting to Hoover, the chances get more and more remote with each passing day. They're sitting at 3-20 in the league. It doesn't help that, Ole Miss was a team they were chasing. They've obviously added wins. LSU theoretically was a team they were chasing. They've added wins. Mizzou won against South Carolina yesterday. So the pack is getting further away from Auburn now. And so it seems like, look, barring something I would not expect, like them winning their last 7 SEC games, I don't see it in the cards. It just has been one of those years. There's always a team in the SEC where, for one reason or other, whether it's injuries, guys don't take jumps, whatever, there's one team that is just a lot worse than we thought they would be. And for that has been Auburn this year. Thought they had a run in them and they just never did. And Ike Irish being out for a weekend at a bad time was part of that, but it just hasn't really come together for Auburn this year like we thought it would. So that's kind of where they're at. But this game individually, I thought the relief pitching for Ole Miss, which has been such a trouble spot for them this season, was a huge part of the success here. As we scroll down to here, you'll see Josh Mallitz and Wes Mendez combined for 5 1/3 scoreless after Liam Doyle, gave up 4 runs in 3 2/3. Really good stuff there, especially important for Mendez, just given he's a freshman, he's a talented kid. He's going to be a big part of Ole Miss's pitching staff at some point. They were kind of hoping it would be this year, and maybe it still will be. Maybe this is a sign of things to come, but certainly a bright future, and that's a big moment for him. So good stuff there. The big hit here was, well, not so much a hit, a 9th inning. See here the scoring, 9th inning sac fly by Andrew Fisher, who had homered early in the game, but that sac fly puts Ole Miss ahead 5-4. And now look, they're sitting at 9-14. In the league, and I'm going to flip over to the take a look for myself at the standings here just to make sure I have it all right. But they're now even with Alabama in terms of conference record. LSU has kept pace with them, but they're only a game back of where Florida is right now. So Ole Miss went from, we talked about it going into the weekend, this is exactly what they needed to at least give themselves a flicker of hope. They've done that. Obviously, they'll have to continue winning. They still need to get to 13 regular season SEC wins or so, and then maybe even win a game in Hoover to feel good about it. But this was the first step. Getting a sweep today would be so huge for their hopes to get to those 10 SEC wins. We will obviously have to see about that. All right, let's flip over to some comments. We've got some that have come in already here. Jason Armstrong, I'm not shocked that Jason Armstrong was the first guy in here. I think he and Carl Dunn, the first two LSU fans, are in here first. I'm not surprised by that. Jason Armstrong says, "Do you believe?" I said, "Do you believe, Joe? LSU, let's freaking go." Yeah, I mean they're they're playing well right now. They've taken down A&M a couple games in a row. They've made A&M play sloppy baseball. Some of that is self-inflicted by A&M, but A&M has looked fairly sloppy, and this is what a team looks like when they're going on a run. It does feel a little. I don't want to overreact to 2 results, but this doesn't feel like, okay, LSU had some things go right and they won a couple of fluky games. Like, no, they've done what it takes to win. They've proactively done the thing that they needed to do to put A&M on the ropes. I've been really impressed the last 2 days. So we'll see. Still much like with Ole Miss, still work to do. Still got to continue winning. But this is, I mean, if you can win a series against A&M, you can win a series against anybody, right? So being at home helps. But yeah, that's been big. Carl Dunn says we're dancing down Skip Burtman Boulevard. We're coming back. Remember, don't let LSU get hot. That's the hope, right? I mean, the hope is that LSU is about to go on a 2022 Ole Miss run. We'll have to see, but this is exactly the same time of year. Remember, Ole Miss in 2022, the rock bottom was 7-14. LSU came into this weekend 7-14, so it is the exact same spot. So if you believe in that kind of just like that type of superstition stuff, like that is an omen, I guess. But yeah, so it should be a fun ride if nothing else. Jeremy Scott on Facebook with his Roll Tide there, trying to avoid the sweep today, and yeah, Jeremy, suddenly Alabama's really got its back against the wall and has to have a win today because it has fallen back from the pack a little bit. So yeah, big game today for the Tide. Sean Miller, let's see, this is a little bit longer, so I'll put it up here. My Aggies are kicking it around in Baton Rouge. We need to salvage Sunday, get home and get healthy. 2 top bats, Grahovac and Burton injured in the last week is bad timing. Agreed. Yeah, that is bad timing. Injuries are never convenient, but losing guys at this time of year is obviously magnified. It magnifies the situation. So I'm with you. Need to salvage a game today. Need to get back home, kind of reset. Every team in the SEC is going to go through a period of time when they start to question, like, has this all been a mirage? Like, are we really as good as we thought we were, et cetera, et cetera. That happens every year in the SEC. To every team, essentially, unless you're on a heater like 2022 Tennessee, and they even lost a series to a Kentucky team that wasn't that great that year. So every team kind of has this moment. I think this is probably just A&M's moment. And also, you've got a really motivated LSU team that's forcing you into a lot of sloppy play and forcing you to not be yourself in terms of the way you're playing. So as Carl Dunn said, you still have a strong team. So I don't think there's anything to worry about there. Just a weird timing thing. Nicholas Doherty, say LSU gets in around a 3 seed in the tourney. How dangerous are they with Jump Holman and Harris? I mean, very honestly, like that's if they do enough to get into a regional, you're not going to want to see them pop up, right? If you're the host team there, that's like the last type of 3 seed you want to see because they're talented enough to have hosted, right? We had them in the top 5 to start the season, certainly top 10. And so we thought they had host quality talent. It just hasn't clicked. If it starts to click, albeit very late, suddenly that's not a team you want to see rolling into your regional. So yeah, I mean, they're really dangerous because in a regional, that winning those first 2 games are the most important thing. And having Jump and Holman gives you a really good chance to win those first 2 games. All right. Yeah. Tennyson Tipton, we will be fine, but this is far less than ideal. I assume that's an A&M comment, Tennyson. I'm not familiar, but yeah, I mean, or maybe it's not. So let me know if you've got a follow up there. And then Jeremy Scott for Alabama on Facebook says after today they won't play a game outside of the state until regionals unless they host. I mean, yeah, that helps not having to take big trips. Like, and now that school is wrapping up, there are certain teams that make runs after school wraps up after finals, when you can kind of just focus on the baseball aspect of things. Maybe that's the catalyst they need. We will obviously see. All right, let's talk player of the day. Some decent options here. And as always, so many of these, I read these off more as jumping off points to talk about the individual games. Speaking of which, Emilian Petre for Kentucky, 2 for 3 with 2 doubles, a walk, and 4 runs batted in. Also made a couple of really nice defensive plays at second base. I've said it before. He's he'd be a shortstop in a lot of other places, but Grant Smith is there, so he plays second. Kentucky got a big win, 11-3 over Arkansas to kind of get back on track. I mean, they talk about teams questioning the situation. If they had lost the first 2 games of the series and therefore lost the series, I think it would, understandably, Kentucky would have really been asking itself some difficult questions. Now, as it is, they can still lose the series with a loss today, but you go into today with a lot more confidence, maybe, that you're ready to compete in that situation. And look, with Kentucky, obviously it matters what else happens around them. But I mean, if they win this series today, I mean, that's your national seed right there. Like that's really what's on the line here, because I don't see them getting swept the final 6 games of the season. The series against Florida and Vanderbilt, both winnable series, teams they should win games against. So, you win this series, I feel extremely confident that wraps up the national seed, barring you just completely falling apart. And even then it might not matter. Like, you might have locked it up. So big game today for Kentucky and for Arkansas, just to kind of, get fully back on track, because there have been little cracks in the, foundation of late with Arkansas, but I'm not overly worried about it. But I can understand if you're an Arkansas fan, you start to get a little bit nervous when you lose a series like this one, if that comes to pass. Cam Kojal, a name we haven't said in a while, for Vanderbilt, 2 for 3 with a home run. I bring him up. Now, this was a losing effort against Georgia, but I bring him up because he's been out for a while. Getting him back helps the lineup. You may remember that when he was really going good earlier this year, like at the Minute Maid tournament for Vanderbilt, he was a big time catalyst. He was an important piece. So getting him back is huge. Yesterday, 2 for 3 game, perhaps a sign of things to come. On the winning side of that game, Charlie Condon, 2 for 3 with a home run and 2 doubles. That means he has once again reset his Georgia single season and all-time home run record mark. So congrats to Charlie Condon there. Drew Culbertson from Missouri got an 8-1, checking my score here to make sure I have it, 8-3 win over South Carolina. We'll talk about that rubber match in a little bit, but Drew Culbertson at the plate, a freshman shortstop who really looks like a guy who's going to be a really good player for them. He's still, because he's a freshman, still like a little raw, but it's a lot of athleticism. It's a lot of tools. I'm kind of excited to see what's next for him, but 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs in yesterday's win. Will Hamiter on the losing side of a game against Mississippi State went 3 for 4. Weird deal with Alabama. They have a stomach bug that's running its way through their locker room. Apparently, I heard that. I was driving yesterday and was listening to the radio call of that game, and apparently they've got a stomach bug going through the locker room. So their lineup was a little wonky yesterday with some guys who don't normally play. So they went into the game undermanned, ended up losing it 8-1. So not a great offensive performance there. Not sure what we'll see in terms of lineups. I don't know if you've ever had a stomach bug. Lord knows I have before, and it's not necessarily something that just goes away. So we'll have to see what their lineup looks like today. But that's obviously really really poor timing there. On the winning side of that game, Logan Kohler for Mississippi State, 3 for 4 with a double and a home run. And then in LSU's win over Texas A&M, Jared Jones, 2 for 3 with a home run and 2 doubles. I believe that's 20 home runs on the year for Jared Jones. I forget the exact number, but quietly putting up really good power numbers. Maybe not as consistent as you would like. He's had a season that's been a little bit up and down, but the power numbers have been right there the whole time. For Tennessee, Christian Moore in their blowout win over Florida to win that series. Christian Moore, 3 for 5 with a home run, but the player of the day is Hunter Inslee, center fielder for Tennessee, 3 for 4 with 2 doubles, a home run, and 7 runs batted in. I mean, that's the killer about Tennessee, right? Is that, I mean, obviously Christian Moore had a big game, but you can pitch well to Christian Moore and Blake Burke and Kavares Tears and whoever else, but somebody like Hunter Inslee can get you, and he's not the guy you're really game planning around, and that's what makes that lineup so difficult. And so player of the day is Hunter Inslee with that performance there. We'll flip over back to comments here quickly. Mississippi Vol on YouTube. First of all, says great show as usual, Joe. Thank you. Appreciate that. Glad seeing my Vols bats wake up last night. We had been going through that midseason slump for the past 5 games. Hashtag go big orange. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I was kind of starting to wonder a little bit, that the Mizzou series was weird. Like, he scored 3 runs the last 2 games. Midweek loss was weird. But yeah, yesterday just was an explosion and did what you needed to do against a rival team like that, not letting Florida get the momentum that the momentum we're talking about with LSU, with Ole Miss, that's kind of what Florida was looking for. Tennessee didn't allow it. Just a great performance offensively there for Tennessee, and showing again why I still think that's the best lineup in the SEC and by extension the country. Carl, you mentioned Christian Little. Hold that thought. Angela Crotchfeld on Facebook with a good morning. Good morning, Angela. Good to hear from you. Sean Miller again on YouTube. Nerdcast with tough choices this week, trending towards 7 SEC hosts: A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Carolina, Mississippi State, and Georgia. Yeah, Georgia and State have certainly helped themselves. We'll see today with Carolina. This is a big rubber game for them against Missouri. If you want to host, losing a series against Missouri is not exactly the way to go about it. So, I mean, you won a series against Kentucky last weekend. You felt really good about that. Like, seemed like they were flying high, getting ready to earn that host spot. And then to turn around even on the road and lose a series to Missouri is not exactly, I don't want to just say it totally erases what they did against Kentucky, but it might. So we'll have to see there. Taylor Made on YouTube says SEC title is wide open. I think that's right. I mean, you've got Kentucky and Tennessee with a win today. Kentucky would be a game up on Tennessee. They're tied with Arkansas right now. A&M has fallen off the pace. Obviously, they're a couple games back. But yeah, and don't look now, but Mississippi State, I don't think State will get there. But I don't know. They've been hot. But they're only 3 games back of the lead now. So we'll have to see about that. But yeah, I think at a bare minimum, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Arkansas are all right in that mix. And I think we all believe that A&M will be in it too by the time it's all said and done. They're just too good. Okay, let's talk pitcher of the day. So some options here. Wes Mendez, we talked about that in the game of the day for Ole Miss. 3 hitless, scoreless innings. Great work there from him. Dom Nyman for Kentucky, wanted to shout him out. The line itself is just solid, 5 1/3, 5 hits, 2 runs. But when you consider in his 2 previous starts, he had gotten 3 total outs. Him getting anything of quality this weekend was huge, because if it didn't happen, Kentucky would have to start asking some harder questions about usage for Dom Nyman. But he bounces back, pitches well, leads his team to a win. Really, really positive outing for Dom Nyman. So wanted to shout him out here. Colton Smith for Georgia in that win against Vanderbilt, another run rule win against Vanderbilt. That's 2 in a row. Colton Smith, 4 innings pitched, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 6 strikeouts. He has been quietly dominant. If you've not watched Colton Smith pitch, if you're not a Georgia fan and you've not seen him, he's a guy to fear when your team plays Georgia. Good strikeout stuff. Clearly is feeling it right now. Charlie Goldstein started that game for Georgia, came off the mound with an apparent injury. Wes Johnson, after the game, said it was just a tricep cramp, and it was just kind of precautionary. Obviously, we'll see. Right. He was in post game, so he probably hadn't had a chance to totally, get debriefed on the situation. So that'll be something to monitor moving forward. Goldstein has been on the shelf already once this season, so something to watch for Georgia. But Colton Smith picked up the slack there, pitched excellent in relief yesterday. Speaking of excellent relief outings after a guy left early, Carter Rustad for Missouri, 6 2/3 innings pitched, 5 hits, 3 runs, no walks, 6 strikeouts. Javen Pimental, who himself is coming back from injury, lasted a third of an inning. So not a long start there for him. Might have been a short start anyway, just given, that the fact that he's on the mend, he's on the way back. That might have been by design regardless, but Rustad picks up the slack there, leads the team to a win. Also in relief, Nate Snead. He's been like AJ Causey, has kind of been a piggyback guy all year. As Andrew Sechrist just goes a couple of innings, Snead comes on, gives up just 1 unearned run in 5 innings. Big time stuff there. And Carl Dunn mentioned it, Christian Little, 3 2/3 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts against obviously a very good, even if it's slightly banged up, a very good. Shout out to everybody who just saw me spit on my keyboard there. That was very attractive, Joe. But very good, even if it's banged up. Texas A&M lineup. Christian Little's been so beaten up, literally and figuratively, right? He's had a lot of tough outings last couple of years at LSU. It just hasn't been the experience I think that he probably would have wanted, that LSU would have wanted for him. But he's still a very talented pitcher. The stuff is still good. And last night we saw that, hey, when he puts it together, he's an effective piece. LSU is best if he's got a role. So perhaps a little bit of positive momentum there for Christian Little. I'm interested to see what comes next for him because, again, if he's something for LSU, they're in a lot better shape. But the pitcher of the day is Jurangelo Sanger from Mississippi State. 7 innings pitched, 7 hits, 1 run, no walk, 8 strikeouts in that win against Alabama. A hamstrung Alabama lineup with the stomach bug that I mentioned, but still really good effort and a really good efficient effort, to not walk anybody. I think he threw 110 pitches in 7 innings, which is a perfectly reasonable number. A really good outing for him. So between he and Cal Steven, State's in really good shape. And, Brooks Auger has been really good of late. So State really, just in a lot of ways, rounding into form. I mean, that's what you want is teams that play their best baseball in May and then kind of hit a crescendo as June gets underway. And State's another team, if they don't end up getting a host spot at this point, I wouldn't bet against them hosting, certainly with the way they're playing. But even if they don't, I mean, that's a 2 seed that you absolutely want no part of. So that they're going to be a real force to be reckoned with in June, which is, exciting for their fan base. And I think exciting for those of us who are just SEC observers who, had a hard time believing how much they've struggled the last couple of years. So to see them flip it around like this has been impressive, obviously. So Jurangelo Sanger, the pitcher of the day. Billy is asking simply, talk about Arkansas. Yeah, so the offense, I think this kind of game just happens when you're Arkansas's lineup. You can get got because we understand the limitations of that lineup. I think what was more, I think it was more surprising that their pitching staff struggled the way it did to keep Kentucky off the board. Now, Kentucky's a good lineup. We've talked about that. The perception of them has long been that their lineup's not that dangerous. It's small ball, it's stealing bases, and they can still do that stuff. But this year, I mean, anybody who's paid attention the last, 8 weeks knows that, okay, this is a different lineup than they were even in non-conference play. They're really swinging it. And so, but still with Arkansas, with the pitching they have, I kind of expected them to handle it. I thought, they might have games where they give up 6-7 runs, but given the struggles for Kentucky on the mound, I kind of thought that those are still games that Arkansas could win. But I'm looking at their box score now, and Tigert goes 3 innings. Gage Wood started off really, really strong, but it felt like maybe the leash was a little too long for him in that outing. He ends up giving up 3 runs and 4 1/3, and then Cody Frank comes on and can't put out the fire. He gives up 3 more runs in the bottom of the 8th. So that's just the fact that Arkansas, individual outings where you get hit a little bit, those are going to happen. It's college baseball. But the fact that Arkansas couldn't put out the fire is the part of that that's troublesome. Because normally that's, look, guy has a bad outing, team with as much depth as Arkansas brings on the next guy, and then that's the end of the show, of the story. The next guy takes care of it, and you just say, hey, that guy who got hit a little bit, not his day. But the fact that they went to 3 guys, and look, maybe if Gage Wood gets pulled a little bit earlier, maybe we're having a different conversation and we're talking about, how Gage Wood kept him in that game. Maybe that's the case. And a couple things go differently, it could maybe be a different result. I think it was Emilian Petre that hit a deep fly ball to left field, and Ross Lovich, I guess, kind of misjudged. I think it was Lovich out there in the outfield, but kind of misjudged where the wall was. And so he had it measured, and I think could have made a catch, but he didn't expect the wall. So he hits the wall when he's backing up, and it throws him off, and the ball hits the wall and then comes off for a big hit. Maybe if he makes that catch, we're talking about something totally different, but ifs and buts, of course. I mean, this is baseball, and there's a winner and a loser, and that's just the reality. So not overly worried about Arkansas, but I'll be fascinated to see Mason Molina pitching today. And I guess that's a good segue. Let's talk game of the day. Arkansas, Kentucky, big rubber game there. Like I said, with Kentucky, you win this game. You win this game. I think that's your national seed sewn up right there. Arkansas, obviously, I'm confident they're going to be a national seed as well, but their case is a little more straightforward. And certainly winning this series would basically sew that up for the Razorbacks as well. Mason Molina on the mound. It was a TBA to start the weekend, but Molina will get the start. We'll see how much leash he has just coming off his own injury stuff. It was an ankle for him. Mason Moore for Kentucky, and it's been a little bit rough sledding for Mason Moore, not to the extent it has been for Dom Nyman, but the last couple of weeks have not necessarily been kind to Mason Moore. So that's an interesting pitching matchup to see who's able to give their team more. It could end up being a heavy bullpen game with a decent number of runs scored. So it might be the kind of game where, strap in, folks, because it's going to be a little bit of a wild ride. We will certainly see. I'm also fascinated in South Carolina and Missouri. We talked about this one a little bit earlier. I haven't seen if their starters were announced, but it was a double TBA game. So who knows what you're going to get, especially on the Missouri side, because they used Rustad in relief. He might have been a guy who could have started today, but he's not. He got burned up yesterday. So TBA on both sides. If again, South Carolina, you want to host, you got to win the series. I feel like. I mean, it's possible if you don't win the series, you can still host. That's totally on the table, but you're going to lose a lot of confidence. The confidence will be shaken in your ability to host if you lose this series. So a big rubber match there as well. Sean Miller brought up on YouTube, Georgia's Christian Racknick coming off the sticky stuff gate at A&M gives up 2 home runs and 3 pitches to Vandy in his next appearance. Rough timing, even if it's just coincidence. I will agree on that. Even if it is coincidence, like that's obviously not what he was looking for there as a follow-up appearance. And then finally, Carl Dunn will wrap on this comment. Just go ahead and give Condon Player of the Year. I think so. I think I mentioned it yesterday. Like, how the Heisman Trophy, sometimes we know exactly who's going to win it, but they still have to invite 4 players to New York for the ceremony. That's kind of maybe what this feels like, where, it's Charlie Condon, but we're still going to need to invite, we're still going to need to invite Braden Montgomery and Jack Caglione and whoever else to the party. But yeah, I think it's Condon's deal. And honestly, one of the most incredible offensive performances that I've ever seen over a full season. So a very deserving SEC and more than likely national player of the year. Heck of a season there. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this episode of Weekend Waypoints. Thanks for joining me as always. Thank you for the comments. That is my favorite part of this whole deal, is going back and forth with you guys a little bit. You've made the show, honestly. You've made the show what it is. You've made it such a good interactive experience for me. Quick little announcement. We'll make sure to say this on the podcast as well. If you listen to Highway to Hoover with Mark and I, are going to do a live tournament preview of the SEC tournament Monday night. So the Monday before the SEC tournament starts on that Tuesday. Mark and I in the evening, exact time TBD. We'll let you know. I have an idea of that, but I haven't discussed it with Mark yet, and I don't want to make a unilateral decision, frankly. But we will be doing a special edition of Weekend Waypoints, if you will, an SEC tournament preview edition that evening. So if you're available to come pop in, ask us some questions. We'll be looking to do a little bit of Q&A while we preview the tournament. So mark your calendars for that Monday, that evening. Yes, Jeremy, it will be live streamed. So basically, you will be able to watch it the way you're watching this. So that'll be Monday evening. So watch out for that. Obviously, it'll also be archived if you can't join us live. The show will be archived like all of these are, but hopefully a lot of you guys can join us live and bat some questions back and forth, and we'll have a little fun with it. Anyway, enjoy the baseball today, everyone. I will be back talking to you, other than Highway to Hoover, of course, next Friday morning to preview a whole nother weekend of SEC baseball. Have a good Sunday, folks.